The meeting room was silent except for the soft hum of the holographic display. 12 beings from different worlds sat around the curved table, their faces showing worry and confusion. Admiral Kresh of the Galactic Reconnaissance Council looked at the empty spaces on the star map where red dots had once blinked. 17 ships, he said, his voice heavy with concern. 17 of our best scouts, and not one has returned from the Sol system. The beings around the table shifted uncomfortably. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked almost human except for their strange colored skin or extra eyes. But they all shared the same worried expression. Perhaps they were destroyed, suggested Commander Yilla, her blue skin shimmering under the lights. This species might have weapons we don't know about. No debris, replied Admiral Kresh. No energy signatures from battles, no distress calls. They simply vanish when they get close to the third planet. The planet in question appeared on the holographic display. It was mostly blue and green, with white swirls of clouds. It looked peaceful, even beautiful, but it had become the graveyard of their finest scouts. Dr. Zen, a tall being with 4 arms, pulled up data files with quick movements. The humans of Earth appear primitive, he said. They've barely left their own planet. Their weapons are simple. Their technology is basic compared to ours. Then where are our ships? Admiral Kresh asked. The question hung in the air like a bad smell. For 3 months, the Galactic Reconnaissance Council had been sending their best people to study Earth. The planet had been marked for possible contact after long-range sensors detected interesting activity. The humans were advancing quickly, maybe too quickly. The Council wanted to know if they posed a threat, but every scout sent to watch them had disappeared. Scout Ship Whisper was our best, said Commander Yilla. Captain Drace had never failed. A mission. His ship could hide from anything. But 3 days after entering Earth's solar system, nothing. Not even an echo on our deep space sensors. Admiral Kresh nodded grimly. Captain Drace had been his student years ago. The young pilot could make his ship invisible to every known type of scanner. He could slip past entire fleets without being seen. If something had happened to him, it was serious. What about Scout Ship Silent Wing? Asked Dr. Zen. Gone, replied another council member, a reptilian being called Sector Commander Thal. Lieutenant Vex was supposed to report back 2 weeks ago. Her ship was designed for long-range observation. She could watch a planet from the edge of its solar system and count the leaves on trees. But she got closer to Earth and then... He made a gesture with his clawed hand that meant vanished. The holographic display showed the timeline of disappearances. It was getting worse. At first, they had lost 1 ship every few weeks. Now, scouts were vanishing every few days. Maybe they were captured, suggested a small, furry being called Science Officer Kip. The humans might be more advanced than we think. Captured how? Admiral Kresh asked. Our ships have the best cloaking technology in the galaxy. They can't be seen, heard, or detected by any known method. And our scouts are trained to avoid contact at all costs. Dr. Zen brought up more data. I've studied human technology carefully. They have basic radio waves, simple computers, and primitive space vehicles. They can barely reach their own moon. How could they catch ships that can travel between stars? Commander Yilla leaned forward. What if it's not their technology? What if it's something else? Like what? Admiral Kresh asked. I don't know, she admitted. But 17 ships don't just disappear. Our people don't just give up and go home without telling us. Something is happening on that planet. The council members looked at each other nervously. In all their years of exploring the galaxy, they had never encountered anything like this. They had met hostile species that fought them. They had found dangerous planets with deadly environments. They had even discovered ancient technologies that could destroy entire star systems. But they had never found anything that could make their best scouts simply vanish without a trace. What do we know about the last transmissions? Admiral Kresh asked. Dr. Zen pulled up audio files. Most scouts report normal observations at first. They describe human cities, technology, and behavior, patterns. But then the reports become strange. Strange how? Listen to this, Dr. Zen said, playing a recording. The voice belonged to Captain Drace, speaking in the common galactic language. Day 7 of observation. Human subjects continue to show unusual behavior patterns. They create art with no practical purpose. They help strangers for no reward. They keep small animals as companions that serve no function. This behavior is interesting. I need to observe more closely. The recording ended there. That was his last transmission, Dr. Zen said. Commander Yilla frowned. Interesting? Drace never called anything interesting. He was the most serious scout in the fleet. Another recording began playing. This time it was Lieutenant Vex. The humans have something called music. They make organized sounds that serve no survival purpose, but it affects their emotional states. I've been listening to their radio transmissions for hours. There's something about these patterns that I can't explain it. I need to understand this better. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Lieutenant Vex had been known for her cold, scientific approach to everything. She never cared about alien cultures beyond what was needed for her reports. Play the last one, Admiral Kresh said quietly. The final recording was from Scout Captain Nix, who had disappeared just a week ago. The humans have a concept they call hope. Even when facing impossible odds, they continue trying. I've watched them help each other during disasters. I've seen them risk their lives for people they don't even know. This is not logical behavior, but somehow, it makes sense. I think I understand why our people haven't returned. I think they found something here that we don't have back home. The recording ended with the sound of Scout Captain Nix laughing, which was disturbing because his species didn't normally laugh. Admiral Kresh turned off the display. We have a problem. Either the humans have some kind of weapon that captures our people without a fight, or what? Commander Yilla asked. Or our scouts don't want to come home. The meeting room fell silent again. The idea was almost too strange to consider. Galactic scouts were the most loyal people in the fleet. They were trained from childhood to serve the Council and follow orders without question. The idea that they would abandon their duties was unthinkable, but the evidence was clear. 17 ships had gone to Earth, and 17 ships had not returned. What do we do? Dr. Zen asked. Admiral Kresh looked at the image of Earth on the display. The little blue planet seemed harmless, but it had swallowed their best people without a trace. We send one more mission, he decided. But this time we send a full battle group. Armed ships, experienced commanders, and strict orders to avoid direct observation of the planet. We'll watch from a safe distance and try to figure out what happened to our people. And if this mission disappears too? Commander Yilla asked. Admiral Kresh was quiet for a long moment. Then we declare Earth a forbidden zone and warn all galactic civilizations to stay away. But even as he said it, he wondered if it was already too late. Earth had taken 17 of their best people. Maybe it was hungry for more. Commander Zephix checked his instruments for the 10th time as his battle group approached the edge of the Sol system. 3 heavy cruisers and 2 scout ships made up the most powerful reconnaissance force the Galactic Council had ever sent to observe a single planet. Keep us at maximum sensor range, he ordered his crew. I want to know everything about this system before we get close to that planet. His navigator, Lieutenant Kess, nodded nervously. Sir, we're detecting the outer planets now. Gas giants, asteroid belts, normal stellar formation. Nothing unusual. What about artificial signatures? Zephix asked. Some basic radio transmissions from the 3rd planet. Simple satellite networks. A few primitive space stations. Nothing that could threaten our ships. Zephix frowned. The reports made Earth sound harmless. But 17 ships didn't just disappear without reason. He had known Captain Drace personally. The man was careful, professional, and absolutely loyal to the Council. If something had happened to him, it was serious. Sir, called out his sensor operator, a young Valari named Tech, Specialist Mora. "I'm picking up energy signatures." "From Earth?" "No, sir. From space around Earth. Multiple signatures, very faint. They match our missing scout ships." Zephix felt his blood run cold. "Are they moving?" "Negative. The signatures are stationary. They appear to be landed." "Landed where?" Mora worked frantically at her controls. "On Earth's surface. All of them. Sir, I'm reading at least 15 of our missing ships scattered across the planet's continents." The bridge crew looked at each other with worry and confusion. Zephix had expected to find wreckage in space, or maybe signs of a battle. He had not expected to find their invisible scout ship sitting openly on an alien planet. "Are their cloaking systems active?" he asked. "That's the strange part, sir. I can detect them because their cloaking systems are completely offline. The ships are just sitting there, visible to anyone with basic sensors." Zephix stood up from his command chair. "Visible? Our most advanced stealth ships are sitting on a primitive planet where anyone can see them?" "Yes, sir. And, sir, the humans know they're there." "What do you mean?" Mora's voice was shaky. "I'm detecting human activity around the ships. Vehicles, people, construction. It looks like the humans are studying them." This was getting worse by the minute. Zephix had come expecting to find destroyed ships or captured crews. Instead, he found their most secret technology sitting in the open on a primitive planet. "Can you locate the crews?" he asked. "I'm trying, sir, but our people's biosignatures are scattered all over the planet. They're not with their ships." "Scattered how?" "They appear to be in human cities, sir, mixed in with the local population." Zephix sat down heavily. This was not what he had expected at all. "Are they prisoners?" Mora checked her readings again. "I don't think so, sir. Their biosigns show normal health, normal stress levels. They don't appear to be in danger." The implications were staggering. 17 crews of highly trained galactic scouts were apparently living freely among humans, while their ships sat unguarded on the planet's surface. "Take us closer," Zephix ordered, "but keep us hidden and ready to jump to light speed if needed." As they moved deeper into the Sol system, more details became clear. The human planet was busy with activity. Thousands of aircraft moved through the atmosphere, ships crossed the oceans, cities sparkled with lights even on the dark side of the planet. "Sir," Lieutenant Kess said, "I'm picking up something else. Human technology signatures that match our ships." "Impossible. Human technology is too primitive to understand our systems." "That's what I thought too, sir. But look at this." The main screen showed a human facility surrounded by tall fences and guard towers. In the center sat scout ship Whisper, Captain Drace's vessel. But around it were buildings full of equipment that gave off energy signatures very similar to galactic technology. "They're reverse engineering our ships," Zephix said in disbelief. "It gets worse, sir," Mora added. "I'm detecting similar facilities on 3 other continents. The humans have separated our ships and are studying them at different locations." "How long have they been doing this?" "Based on the construction around the ships, I'd say at least 2 months. Maybe longer." Zephix tried to process what he was seeing. The humans had somehow captured or acquired 17 of the galaxy's most advanced scout ships. They had disabled the cloaking systems, separated the vessels, and were systematically studying the technology. And somehow, the crews were not only alive, but living freely among the human population. "Can you get a lock on any of our people?" he asked. Mora worked at her controls. "I have a biosignature that matches Captain Drace. He's in a human city called San Francisco, about 50 kilometers from where his ship is being studied." "What's he doing there?" "Unknown, sir, but his stress levels are normal, and he's moving around freely. He doesn't appear to be a prisoner." This was the most confusing situation Zephix had ever encountered. In his 20 years of service, he had seen hostile aliens, dangerous planets, and impossible space phenomena. But he had never seen anything like this. Try to establish communication with Captain Drace, he ordered. His communications officer, Chief Rawl, worked at his station. I'm sending a coded message on his personal frequency. Standard recall protocol. They waited. Minutes passed without a response. Send it again, Zephix said. Still nothing. Sir, Chief Rawl said slowly, I'm receiving a response, but it's not on our standard frequencies. It's coming through human communication networks. Human networks? How would he access those? I don't know, sir. But the message is definitely from Captain Drace. It's encrypted with his personal codes. Put it through. The message appeared on Zephix's screen. It was short and written in the common galactic language, but something about it felt different. Commander, Zephix, I know you're out there. Don't try to contact me through official channels again. The humans monitor their communication networks, but they're not hostile. If you want to talk, come down to the planet. But come alone, and come peacefully. Things are not what they seem here. The mission parameters have changed. Drace. Zephix read the message twice. It sounded like Drace, but something was wrong. The tone was too casual, too friendly. Captain Drace had always been formal and strictly professional. Sir, Mora said, I'm picking up another message. This one's from Lieutenant Vex. The second message was even stranger. Zephix, you old warrior, welcome to Sol System. I hope you brought an open mind because you're going to need it. Earth is not what we expected. The humans are amazing. I know that sounds crazy, but trust me on this. If you want to understand what happened to us, you need to experience it yourself. Fair warning, though, once you see what I've seen, you might not want to go back to the old way of doing things. Zephix stared at the screen. Lieutenant Vex had never called him by his first name. She had never used exclamation points in her reports, and she had certainly never suggested that anyone might not want to return to duty. Sir, Chief Rawl said nervously, I'm receiving messages from 12 other missing crew members. They all have similar tones. Show me. One by one, the messages appeared. Each one was from a different missing scout, and each one sounded wrong in the same way. They were too casual, too friendly, too excited about their experiences on Earth. Something has happened to our people, Zephix said quietly. Sir, Lieutenant Kess asked, these messages, they don't sound like our scouts. They sound like different people entirely. You think the humans have done something to them? Mind control? Chemical alteration? Zephix considered the possibilities. Maybe. Or maybe something else. Something we don't understand yet. He looked at the image of Earth on the main screen. The planet looked so peaceful, so normal. But it had somehow changed. 17 of his best people into strangers who wrote friendly messages and refused to return to duty. Sir, Mora said, I'm detecting movement from the planet's surface. A small craft is heading toward us. Human? No, sir. It's one of our shuttles from Scout Ship Silent Wing. Lieutenant Vex's personal transport. Zephix's hands tightened on his chair arms. Are there weapons on that shuttle? Basic defensive systems only. But, sir, Lieutenant Vex is piloting it herself. I can confirm her biosignature. She's coming here? Yes, sir, and she's broadcasting a message asking for permission to come aboard. Zephix looked around his bridge. His crew was nervous and confused. They had come to Earth expecting to find answers about their missing comrades. Instead, they had found those comrades living freely on the planet and apparently happy to be there. Now, one of them was coming to visit. Should we let her aboard, sir? Lieutenant Kess asked. Zephix thought about it. Meeting with Lieutenant Vex might give him answers, but it might also expose his crew to whatever had changed the other scouts. Raise shields and prepare security teams, he decided. We'll let her come aboard, but we'll be careful about it. As the shuttle approached, Zephix wondered what he would find when he met Lieutenant Vex again. Would she still be the cold, professional scout he remembered? Or would she be another stranger wearing a familiar face? Either way, he was about to find out what Earth had done to his people. Lieutenant Vex stepped off her shuttle and onto the deck of Commander Zephix's ship with a smile on her face. That was the first thing that worried him. In all the years he had known her, Zephix had never seen Vex smile. She was known throughout the fleet as someone who approached every situation with cold logic and professional distance. But this Vex looked relaxed, almost happy. She wore her standard uniform, but something about the way she carried herself was different. She moved with a casual confidence that seemed foreign to the rigid military bearing he remembered. "Commander Zephix," she said warmly, extending her hand in what Zephix recognized as a human gesture. "It's good to see you again." Zephix did not take her hand. Instead, he studied her carefully. She looked healthy and unharmed. Her bio readings showed no signs of mind control or chemical influence. But the person standing before him felt like a stranger. "Lieutenant Vex," he said formally. "Report your status." Her smile widened. "Still as serious as ever, I see. Relax, Zephix. We're not in immediate danger here." "That is Commander Zephix, Lieutenant, and I will determine our danger level." "Of course," she said, but her tone remained friendly rather than respectful. "May I suggest we talk somewhere private? What I have to tell you is going to sound impossible." Zephix led her to a secure conference room with 2 security guards positioned outside. His senior staff joined them, all looking nervous and confused. "Before we begin," Zephix said, "I need to verify your identity. Please provide your service number and authorization codes." Vex rattled off the numbers without hesitation. They were correct, matching her official records exactly, but when she finished, she laughed softly. "Zephix, I'm still me. I'm just better." "Explain what you mean by better." She leaned back, in her chair, a casual posture that the old Vex never would have taken during a formal briefing. "I mean, I understand things now that I didn't understand before, about life, about purpose, about what really matters. Your purpose is to serve the Galactic Council and complete your assigned missions. Is it?" she asked. "Why? Because someone told me it was when I was young? Because it's what my people have always done?" Tech specialist Mora shifted uncomfortably. "Lieutenant, you're talking about abandoning your duties." "No," Vex said, turning to her with that same warm expression. "I'm talking about finding better duties, more meaningful ones." Commander Zephix felt a chill run down his spine. This conversation was exactly what he had feared. "Lieutenant Vex, you will explain what happened to you and the other scouts, and you will explain it now." "Of course," she said. "But first, let me ask you something. In all your years of service, have you ever created anything beautiful?" "What?" "Beautiful. Something that exists purely because it brings joy or wonder to others. Something that serves no tactical or strategic purpose." Zephix stared at her. "That is not relevant to our mission, isn't it? The humans create beautiful things every day. They make music, art, stories. They help strangers for no reward. They risk their lives to save people they don't even know. And you know what I discovered? It feels amazing to be part of that." Lieutenant Kess leaned forward. "Vex, what exactly have you been doing on Earth?" "Learning," she said simply. "At first I followed standard protocols. I observed from a distance, documented their technology, and social structures, prepared my reports. But then something strange happened." "What?" "I started listening to their music. Just to understand their communication patterns, you understand. But the more I listened, the more I realized that they were doing something we never learned how to do. Which is? They were expressing emotions in ways that made other people feel those same emotions. Not through chemicals or technology, but through organized sound patterns. It was the most elegant form of communication I had ever encountered." Zephix was getting more worried by the minute. "So you became distracted from your mission?" "Not distracted. Enlightened. I realized that my mission was too small." "Too small?" "We came here to study their technology and assess them as a potential threat. But we missed the real discovery." These humans have figured out how to live in a way that makes each other better. They have something we lost somewhere in our evolution toward galactic civilization. Tech specialist Mora looked confused. What did we lose? Joy, Vex said simply. When was the last time any of you felt genuine happiness? Not satisfaction from completing a mission, not pride from following orders correctly. Real joy, the kind that makes you want to share it with others. The bridge crew exchanged glances. None of them could answer that question. I've been on Earth for 2 months, Vex continued. I've learned to play something called a piano. I've helped human children learn science. I've watched movies that made me laugh and cry. I've eaten food that was prepared not just for nutrition but for pleasure. And you know what? I've been happier than I've ever been in my entire life. Happiness is not the purpose of military service, Zephix said firmly. Why not? She asked. Why shouldn't we be happy while we serve? Why shouldn't we enjoy our lives while we protect others? Because emotions compromise judgment and efficiency. Do they? I've been more creative, more innovative, and more productive in the last 2 months than I was in the previous 5 years of service. The humans taught me that happiness doesn't weaken you. It energizes you. Lieutenant Kess spoke up nervously. What about the other scouts? What happened to them? The same thing that happened to me. We discovered that there's more to existence than following orders and filing reports. Captain Drace is working with human engineers to develop new propulsion systems. Scout Commander Nix is helping their doctors cure diseases. Lieutenant Thek is teaching their children about star navigation. They're sharing galactic technology with primitives? Zephix asked, horrified. They're sharing knowledge with friends, Vex corrected. And the humans are sharing their knowledge in return. Did you know they've developed over 6,000 different languages? Each one evolved to express different aspects of human experience. They've created millions of different art forms, music styles, and storytelling traditions. Their diversity is incredible. Diversity creates inefficiency, Zephix stated. Does it? Or does it create resilience and innovation? The humans have survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, diseases, and wars. They've done it not by creating a single perfect system, but by developing thousands of different approaches to every challenge. Mora looked thoughtful. That does sound useful from a strategic perspective. It's more than useful, Vex said. It's revolutionary. We've spent centuries creating galactic civilization by making everyone follow the same rules, use the same technology, think the same way. The humans proved that you can create advanced civilization by encouraging everyone to be different. Zephix stood up abruptly. Enough. Lieutenant Vex, you are suffering from some form of mental contamination. You will return to your duties immediately. I'm not contaminated, Zephix. I'm awake. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking for myself instead of just following programming. Your duty is your programming. Without it, you're just another selfish individual. And what's wrong with that? She asked. What's wrong with individuals pursuing their own happiness as long as they don't hurt others? It leads to chaos and inefficiency. Does it? The humans have reached spaceflight, cured diseases, and created global communication networks. They've done it while maintaining thousands of different cultures, governments, and belief systems. That doesn't sound inefficient. To me, Lieutenant Kess looked back and forth between them. Vex, are you saying you won't return to duty? I'm saying I've found better duties, more important ones. The humans are planning to explore their solar system. They want to reach other stars eventually. But they're doing it wrong, using primitive chemical rockets and basic computers. So imagine what they could accomplish with our technology. Imagine what we could accomplish if we learned their approaches to innovation and cooperation. Zephix felt like he was losing control of the situation. You're talking about abandoning galactic civilization. No, I'm talking about improving it. The humans have something we need, and we have something they need. Instead of studying them like laboratory specimens, we could work with them as partners. The Council would never approve such contact. Then maybe the Council is wrong. The Words hung in the air like a bomb. No one in the room had ever heard a galactic officer openly question the Council's authority. "Lieutenant Vex," Zephix said slowly, "you are hereby relieved of duty and ordered to submit to medical examination for mental contamination." She smiled sadly. "Zephix, you can't force me to come back. None of the other scouts are prisoners on Earth. We're free to leave any time we want." "Then why don't you?" "Because we found something better than what we left behind, and because the humans need our help to reach their potential." She stood up and moved toward the door. "I'm going back to Earth now. You're welcome to visit if you want to understand what we've discovered, but if you try to force any of us to return, you'll find that the humans can be very protective of their friends. Are you threatening us?" "I'm warning you. The humans don't like bullies, and they're very good at dealing with them." With that, she left the conference room and walked back to her shuttle. Zephix and his crew watched through the viewports as she departed. Commander Zephix paced his quarters like a caged animal, trying to make sense of what he had witnessed. 3 days had passed since his meeting with Lieutenant Vex, and he still couldn't understand what had happened to her. She had seemed so confident, so happy, so completely changed from the cold professional he remembered. His crew was acting strangely, too. Ever since Vex's visit, they had been asking questions about Earth, about humans, about the missing scouts. Questions they never would have asked before. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called. Tech specialist Mora entered, carrying a datapad and looking nervous. "Sir, I've been analyzing the human transmissions we've intercepted. I think you should see this." "What kind of transmissions?" "Everything, sir. Their entertainment broadcasts, news reports, communication networks, even their music. I wanted to understand what Lieutenant Vex meant about human culture." Zephix frowned. "That wasn't part of your assigned duties." "I know, sir. But after talking with her, I was curious, and what I found is remarkable." She activated her datapad, and sounds filled the room. It was human music, but unlike anything in galactic databases. The melodies were complex and emotional, with instruments working together to create something beautiful. "This is called a symphony," Mora explained. "Humans created it 300 years ago, but they still perform it today. Listen to how the different instruments support each other." Despite himself, Zephix found himself paying attention. The music was unlike the efficient communication tones used throughout galactic civilization. It served no practical purpose, but it was somehow compelling. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. "Because I wanted to understand how humans think. And, sir, I think Lieutenant Vex was right about something. Humans don't just survive, they flourish. They create things of beauty for no reason except that beauty makes them happy." "Happiness is not a strategic advantage, isn't it?" Mora pulled up more data. "Look at their innovation rates. Humans advance technologically faster than any species we've encountered. They solve problems in ways we never consider. And, sir, they do it because they enjoy solving problems." "Get to the point, specialist." "The point is that they might be more advanced than us in ways we don't measure. We focus on efficiency, standardization, and control. They focus on creativity, diversity, and growth." Zephix was about to respond when his communications officer's voice came over the intercom. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's directed specifically at us." "From Lieutenant Vex?" "No, sir. It's coming from multiple sources. All of our missing personnel are transmitting together." Zephix hurried to the bridge, with Mora following. The main screen showed a split image with 17 different faces, all of their missing scouts. But they looked different somehow. Relaxed, happy, more alive than he had ever seen them. "Commander Zephix," said Captain Drace, speaking for the group. "We know you're watching us, and we know you're trying to decide what to do. We wanted to talk to you before you make any decisions you might regret." "Captain Drace," Zephix said, formally. "You and your people are in violation of your orders. Return to your ships immediately." Drace smiled, which was disturbing coming from the most serious officer Zephix had ever known. "We're not coming back, Zephix. None of us are. We've found something here that's worth more than our old duties." "You found a primitive planet with no strategic value." "We've found hope," said Lieutenant Vex, appearing on screen beside Drace. "We found a species that proves civilization doesn't have to be cold and efficient. It can be warm and creative and still be incredibly successful." Another voice joined in. Scout Commander Nix, whose species rarely showed emotion, was actually laughing. "Zephix, you have to see this place to believe it. The humans have a concept called fun. They do things purely because those things make them happy. And it works. It actually makes them more productive, more innovative, more cooperative." "Fun is inefficient," Zephix stated. "Is it?" asked Lieutenant Thek from another part of the screen. "I've been working with human scientists for a month. In that time, we've made advances in physics that would have taken the Council decades to achieve. We did it because we were enjoying ourselves, not because we were following procedures." Zephix felt his world shifting beneath him. These were his best people, his most trusted officers, and they were all saying the same impossible thing. That happiness and creativity were more valuable than duty and efficiency. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Join us," said Captain Drace simply. "Come down to Earth, see what we've seen, experience what we've experienced, then make your choice. I have my duties." "Do you?" asked Vex. "Or do you have programming that you've never questioned? When was the last time you chose to do something because you wanted to do it, not because you were ordered to?" Zephix couldn't answer that question. In his 40 years of life, he had always done what was expected of him, what was required of him, what was ordered of him. The idea of doing something simply because he wanted to seemed foreign. "I can't abandon my crew," he said. "Bring them with you," suggested Scout Commander Nix. "The humans are curious about other species. They'd welcome a chance to learn from you. And share our technology with primitives?" "Share knowledge with friends," corrected Lieutenant Thek. "The humans have technology we've never developed. Social technologies, creative technologies, ways of organizing society that we never imagined." Mora stepped closer to the communications station. "What kind of social technologies?" "Democracy," said Captain Drace. "A system where people choose their own leaders. The humans have dozens of different governmental systems, and they're constantly experimenting with new ones." "That sounds chaotic," said Lieutenant Kess. "It is chaotic," agreed Vex. "But it's also adaptive. When one system stops working, they try another. When they face new challenges, they develop new solutions. They don't have a single galactic authority making all decisions for everyone." "Without central authority, how do they maintain order?" asked Zephix. "They don't maintain order," laughed Scout Commander Nix. "They maintain freedom, and it turns out that free people are incredibly good at solving problems." The transmission continued for another hour, with each of the missing scouts describing their experiences on Earth. They talked about human music, art, literature, science, and philosophy. They described a species that had developed thousands of different ways to live, think, and create. But most importantly, they talked about how happy they had become. When the transmission ended, Zephix's bridge was quiet. His crew members looked thoughtful, confused, and curious. For the first time in their careers, they were hearing about a way of life that sounded appealing rather than just efficient. "Sir," said Lieutenant Kess quietly, "what if they're right?" "Right about what?" "About there being a better way to live. What if happiness and creativity really do make people more effective?" Zephix looked around his bridge. His crew had served faithfully for years, following orders and completing missions. But he realized he had never seen any of them look truly happy. They were satisfied when they performed well, but that was different from joy. "Tech Specialist Mora," he said slowly. "In your analysis of human culture, what did you conclude?" "Sir," I concluded that humans have achieved something remarkable. They've created a civilization that values individual happiness while still maintaining cooperation and progress. It shouldn't work, but it does. And you think this is superior to galactic civilization? Mora hesitated. I think it's worth studying, sir, at minimum. Zephix made a decision that surprised even himself. Lieutenant Kess, prepare a shuttle. I'm going down to Earth. Sir, if 17 of our best people have been changed by this planet, I need to understand how. I'm going to see what they've seen. Should we prepare security teams? Asked Kess. No. If the humans wanted to harm us, they would have done it already. I'm going down alone and unarmed. Sir, that violates standard protocols. Maybe it's time to violate some protocols, Zephix said, surprising himself again. Maybe it's time to try something different. As he prepared for his journey to Earth's surface, Zephix wondered what he would find there. Would he discover that his people had been corrupted or contaminated? Or would he find that they had simply discovered a better way to live? Either way, he was about to find out what had made 17 loyal galactic scouts choose happiness over duty, and for the first time in his life, he was curious rather than afraid about the answer. The shuttle bay doors opened, and Commander Zephix began his descent toward the blue and green planet that had already changed so many lives. In a few hours, he would learn whether it would change his as well. Commander Zephix's shuttle touched down in a field outside a human city called Denver. The landing coordinates had been provided by Captain Drace, who was waiting nearby with 2 humans and what appeared to be a small welcoming committee of former galactic scouts. As Zephix stepped out of his shuttle, he was struck by the immediate sensory difference. Earth's air was filled with scents he couldn't identify, sounds that seemed to have no tactical purpose, and colors that were more vibrant than the sterile environments of galactic ships. "Welcome to Earth," said Captain Drace, approaching with that same unsettling smile. "Commander, I'd like you to meet Dr. Sarah Chen and Professor Marcus Johnson. They're the humans who have been helping us understand your people's situation." The humans stepped forward without fear, extending their hands in the greeting gesture Zephix had seen Vex use. Dr. Chen was small with dark hair and intelligent eyes. Professor Johnson was tall with gray hair and laugh lines around his eyes. "It's an honor to meet you, Commander," Dr. Chen said. "Your people have taught us so much about the galaxy." "And you've corrupted them," Zephix replied stiffly. Professor Johnson laughed, which startled Zephix. "Corrupted? Is that what you think happened?" "My officers abandoned their duties to play with primitive technology and social systems." "If that's not corruption, what is it?" "Growth," said Dr. Chen simply. "Your people didn't abandon anything. They expanded their understanding of what's possible." Captain Drace gestured toward a nearby vehicle. "Come with us, Zephix. Let us show you what we've learned." The vehicle was unlike any galactic transport. It had windows that let in natural light, seats that seemed designed for comfort rather than efficiency, and it played music during the journey. Zephix found himself listening to the sounds despite his intention to ignore them. "This music," he said finally. "What purpose does it serve?" "It makes the journey more pleasant," explained Dr. Chen. "Humans discovered long ago that life is more enjoyable when you add beauty to functional activities. But it serves no practical function, doesn't it?" asked Professor Johnson. "Music reduces stress, improves mood, and helps people think more creatively. That sounds pretty practical to me." They drove through the human city, and Zephix was amazed by what he saw. The buildings were not just functional structures, but were designed with aesthetic considerations. Humans had planted trees and flowers along the streets for no apparent reason except that they looked nice. Children played in parks that served no purpose except recreation. "This is inefficient," Zephix observed. "Is it?" asked Captain Drace. "Look closer. Those children playing in the park are learning cooperation, strategy, and problem-solving. The trees and flowers improve air quality and mental health. The aesthetic buildings make people happier to work in them, which increases productivity. They stopped at a large building that hummed with activity. Inside, Zephix saw something that challenged everything he thought he knew about efficient organization. Humans and former galactic scouts worked together in small groups, tackling various projects. But instead of following rigid hierarchies and protocols, they seemed to be collaborating freely. "This is chaos," Zephix said. "This is innovation," corrected Lieutenant Vex, approaching from a workstation where she had been working with 3 humans on some kind of device. "We're developing new propulsion systems by combining galactic technology with human creativity." "Show him the progress reports," suggested Dr. Chen. Vex pulled up holographic displays that made Zephix's eyes widen. In 2 months, this chaotic group had made advances that would have taken galactic research teams years to achieve. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Because we're enjoying ourselves," said Scout Commander Nix, joining the group. "When you love what you're doing, you work harder and think more creatively. Love is an inefficient emotion." "Is it?" A new voice spoke from behind him. Zephix turned to see Lieutenant Thek, who had always been the most logical member of his crew. "Commander, I've been working with human doctors to cure diseases. In the past month, we've made breakthroughs that have saved thousands of lives. I've never felt more satisfied with my work." "Satisfaction and love are different things." "Are they?" "I love this work because it helps people. The satisfaction comes from the love, not the other way around." Zephix looked around the room again. Former galactic scouts were working with obvious enthusiasm on projects that clearly mattered to them. The humans treated them as equals and friends, not as superior beings or alien specimens. "I don't understand," he said finally. Dr. Chen smiled gently. "Commander, may I ask you a personal question?" "What?" "In your 40 years of life, have you ever done anything purely because it made you happy?" The question hit him like a physical blow. Zephix thought back through his entire existence, trying to remember a single moment when he had acted based on his own desires rather than orders or expectations. He couldn't. "I serve the galactic good," he said weakly. "But do you enjoy serving?" asked Professor Johnson. "Does it bring you joy or is it just duty?" Zephix couldn't answer. He had never considered whether he enjoyed his service. It was simply what he did, what he was supposed to do. "Come with me," said Captain Drace. "I want to show you something." They walked to another section of the building where a group of human children were learning about space exploration from Lieutenant Kess. But wait, Lieutenant Kess was supposed to be on his ship. "How did she get here?" Zephix demanded. "She came down yesterday," Drace explained. "After hearing our transmission, she wanted to see Earth for herself." Zephix watched his navigation officer teaching young humans about star systems, using holographic displays to show them distant worlds. The children were fascinated, asking endless questions and making imaginative suggestions for exploration methods. "This is a waste of time," Zephix said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" asked Lieutenant Kess, overhearing him. "These children have proposed 17 new approaches to interstellar navigation. Some of their ideas are actually brilliant. Children can't understand advanced navigation. They understand curiosity," said one of the human children, a girl who couldn't have been more than 10 years old. "And curiosity is the most important part of exploration." The simple wisdom of the statement stopped Zephix cold. When had he last felt curiosity? When had any galactic officer felt the excitement of discovering something new? "Commander," Dr. Chen said gently, "would you like to try something?" "What?" "Creating something beautiful. Just for the joy of creating." She led him to a table covered with strange materials, paints, brushes, papers, and other items he didn't recognize. "This is art," she explained. "Humans use it to express emotions and ideas that can't be communicated with words. I have no emotions to express. Don't you? What do you feel when you look at the stars? Zephix thought about it. When he looked at the vast emptiness of space, he felt something. A sense of wonder, perhaps. A feeling of smallness, but also connection to something larger. I feel curious, he said slowly. Then, faint curiosity. It was the strangest request anyone had ever made of him. But surrounded by his former crew members who all seemed happier than he had ever seen them, Zephix picked up a brush. At first, his attempts were clumsy and frustrating. But as he worked, something unexpected happened. The act of creating something that existed purely because he wanted it to exist felt liberating. Hours passed without him noticing. When he finally stepped back from his painting, he saw that he had created something that looked like stars swirling in a cosmic dance. It wasn't technically accurate, but it captured something he felt about the universe. "How do you feel?" asked Dr. Chen. Zephix examined his emotions with surprise. "I feel satisfied, but not the satisfaction of completing a mission. Something different." "That's joy," said Captain Drace. "You've just experienced creating something beautiful for its own sake. But it serves no purpose. It serves the purpose of making you happy. And happiness has value." As the day continued, Zephix experienced things he had never imagined. He listened to music that made him feel emotions he couldn't name. He watched humans and former galactic scouts working together, with enthusiasm and friendship. He ate food that was prepared not just for nutrition, but for pleasure. Most importantly, he began to understand what his people had discovered on Earth. "The humans aren't primitive," he said to Captain Drace as the sun began to set. "No, they're not. They're different. They've developed in directions we never considered. They've found a way to be efficient and happy at the same time. More than that. They've found that happiness makes them more efficient, not less." That evening, Zephix stood in a human park, looking up at the stars he had spent his life traveling between. But for the first time, instead of seeing navigational challenges and strategic positions, he saw beauty. "Commander," said Tech Specialist Mora, approaching him. "The rest of the crew has come down from the ship. We want to learn about this place." "All of them?" "Yes, sir. After seeing the changes in Lieutenant Kess, we all wanted to understand what Earth offers." Zephix looked around at his crew, his former missing scouts, and the humans who had welcomed them all. For the first time in his life, he was surrounded by people who seemed genuinely happy to be alive. "Sir?" Mora asked. "What do we tell the Galactic Council?"
The morning sky over New Hope Colony was a beautiful shade of purple-blue, with the twin suns of Epsilon Eridani rising slowly over the eastern mountains. Susan Miller stood on the balcony of the administration building, drinking her first cup of coffee and enjoying the peace of early morning before the colony's day cycle began in earnest. New Hope was humanity's first successful attempt to settle beyond the solar system. After 3 years of hard work, the colony had grown from a cluster of prefabricated shelters to a proper settlement with farms, simple factories, and homes for 5,000 people. Susan was proud of what they had built so far away from Earth. "Morning, Administrator," said Alan Rodriguez as he joined her on the balcony. As head of colony security, Alan started each day with a status report. "Everything's quiet. The North Farm reports their wheat variant is growing even better than expected." Susan smiled. "Good. Any word from the exploration team?" "They're due back tomorrow. Early signals suggest they found another deposit of rare minerals in the Western Hills." Alan pointed to a data pad. "We might be able to send something valuable back to Earth on the next supply ship." The colony's success meant more than just survival. It represented hope for a crowded Earth. If humans could thrive here, they could expand to other star systems too. Susan was about to reply when the building's communication system chimed. George Wilson's voice came through, sounding confused. "Administrator Miller? I'm getting strange readings on the long-range sensors." Susan frowned. "What kind of readings, George?" I'm not sure. Large objects approaching from the outer system, too big to be natural, moving too fast. Susan and Alan exchanged worried glances. New Hope wasn't expecting any ships from Earth for at least 6 months. Whatever these objects were, they weren't human. Sound a yellow alert, Susan ordered. Let's not panic, people, but I want everyone ready to move to shelter if needed. The next hour passed in tense preparation. The colony had basic defenses. A shield generator and a few defensive turrets meant more as protection against natural threats than any serious military capability. Nobody had expected to need more. Space was vast, and humans had never encountered another intelligent species despite decades of searching. As the objects grew closer, the colony's sensors provided more detail. There were 7 large ships, each one at least 3 times the size of Earth's largest vessels. They moved with purpose, clearly controlled by some intelligence. This is it, Susan whispered to Alan. First contact. The colony gathered in the central square, watching the main view screen as the alien ships entered orbit around their world. The vessels were angular, with odd protrusions that might have been weapons or scientific instruments. No one could tell. Susan ordered a greeting message broadcast on all frequencies. This is Administrator Susan Miller of the human colony New Hope. We welcome peaceful contact and communication. For several minutes, there was no response. Then, without warning, bright beams of energy shot from the largest ship, striking the colony's small defense shield. The shield flared bright blue before failing completely. "They're attacking us!" Alan shouted, already activating the emergency. Protocols. Everyone to the shelters. Susan couldn't understand. Why would unknown aliens immediately attack a peaceful colony? There had been no provocation, no resource competition, not even an attempt at communication. The next beam struck the power plant at the edge of the settlement. The explosion rattled windows throughout the colony as their main power source went dark. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in a dim red glow. Get to the communication array, Susan told Alan. We need to send a message to Earth before they hit that too. Alan nodded and ran toward the comm building while Susan used the emergency system to direct colonists to the underground shelters. Children were crying. Adults were shouting questions she couldn't answer. The peaceful morning had turned into chaos in minutes. Outside, more energy beams struck key infrastructure. Water purification, the hospital, the landing field. The pattern was clear. The aliens were systematically destroying the colony's ability to survive, but deliberately avoiding immediate mass casualties. It was as if they wanted the colonists alive but helpless. In the communication center, Susan found Alan and George working frantically at the controls. The main array is still functional, George said, but I'm detecting smaller ships landing on the outskirts of the colony. They'll be here soon. Susan made a quick decision. Send everything we have. Our coordinates, sensor readings of the attacking ships, and a clear message that we're under unprovoked attack. George nodded and began transmitting while Alan prepared to defend the communication center. Susan knew it was hopeless. They had only a few weapons against what appeared to be an advanced military force. But they had to try. Message sent, George confirmed. But I don't know if... Another explosion rocked the building as the aliens hit a target nearby. The lights flickered. Earth is 20 light-years away, Susan said quietly. Even if they send help immediately, it would take years to reach us. Alan checked his weapon. Then we make sure there's something left to save when they get here. Through the window they could see strange shapes moving between buildings. Tall, insect-like creatures with multiple limbs carrying devices that glowed with energy. The aliens had landed and were moving through the colony with frightening efficiency. They're not killing everyone, George observed, watching the aliens herd a group of colonists together. They're collecting people. Susan felt cold fear, mixing with anger. Slavers? Or worse? Before they could speculate further, the door to the communication center burst open. 3 alien creatures entered, their compound eyes reflecting the emergency lights in dozens of red points. They carried weapons unlike anything humans had developed, living metal that seemed to pulse with energy. We won't surrender, Alan said, raising his weapon. The lead alien made a clicking sound and a beam of light struck Alan. He froze in place, paralyzed but conscious, his eyes wide with fear and fury. Susan and George were quickly immobilized as well. As Susan's muscles locked up, she maintained one thought. Earth would receive their message. Earth would know what happened here. And somehow, someday, Earth would respond. The aliens began dismantling the communication equipment, unaware that their victim's desperate message was already racing through space, carrying news of humanity's first encounter with hostile intelligent life, and the seed of a response that would shake the galaxy. As darkness claimed the colony of New Hope, Susan's last conscious thought was a prayer that when Earth's response came, it would arrive with enough force to make these attackers regret ever targeting humans. 20 light-years from New Hope, Earth continued its daily business, unaware of the tragedy unfolding at humanity's first interstellar colony. The United Earth Defense Council was meeting in their underground chamber beneath the rebuilt city of Geneva. The topic, as usual, was whether to continue funding the expensive space fleet that Admiral William Hayes had spent 20 years building. "The colonization program is a success," said Counselor Patricia Edwards, gesturing to the holographic display showing budget figures. "But this military fleet takes resources we could use elsewhere. We found no threats in space. Perhaps it's time to scale back." Admiral Hayes, a tall man with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen too many Earth wars, stood patiently at the podium. He had heard these arguments many times over the years. Today might be the day they finally cut his funding. Today might be the day humanity chose to become defenseless in the stars. "The absence of threats so far doesn't mean they don't exist," Hayes replied calmly. "Space is vast. We've barely explored our tiny corner of the galaxy." Counselor John Winters shook his head. "It's been 20 years, Admiral. 20 years of building warships that have never fired a shot. The public questions why we need such weapons when we've achieved peace on Earth." Hayes was about to respond when his aide, Lieutenant Linda Patel, rushed into the chamber, a breach of protocol that indicated something serious had happened. She whispered urgently in his ear, and the Admiral's expression changed from polite patience to grave concern. "Counselors," Hayes said, his voice now carrying a weight that silenced the room. "We've just received a distress signal from New Hope Colony." He nodded to Linda, who activated the main screen. The image was poor quality, breaking up frequently as Susan Miller's urgent voice came through static. "Under attack. Unknown alien species. No warning. No communication. Systematically. Destroying. Taking prisoners. Please send help." The message ended with several minutes of sensor data showing massive ships unlike anything humans had designed, firing energy weapons at the colony's structures. The council chamber was completely silent for several long moments. Then everyone began talking at once. "Is this confirmed? Could it be a mistake? How long ago was this sent?" Hayes raised his hand, and the room quieted again. "The message was sent 3 days ago. It took 20 light-years at our fastest communication speed to reach us. The attack already happened. Right now the colony is either destroyed or occupied." 3 days, whispered Counselor Edwards. "But even if we send ships now, it would take—" "Not anymore," Hayes replied. "The experimental faster-than-light drive is ready. We can reach New Hope in under a week." Olivia Foster, the leading expert on potential alien communication who had been quietly observing the meeting, stepped forward. Her analysis would be crucial. "This was not a misunderstanding," she said, replaying parts of the attack sequence. "See how they targeted communications first, then power, then defense systems? This was a deliberate, planned assault. They knew exactly what they were doing. Could they be trying to communicate in some way we don't understand?" asked Counselor Winters, still hoping for a peaceful explanation. Olivia shook her head. "No. These are precise military tactics. Disable communication, cut off power, neutralize defenses, then secure the population. This is a conquest, not a greeting." The council members looked at each other, the reality of the situation sinking in. Humanity was not alone in the galaxy, and their first contact with alien intelligence had been an act of war against innocent civilians. "Admiral Hayes," said the Council President, rising from her seat, "how quickly can you deploy the fleet?" "First Fleet can be ready in 48 hours. 7 ships, including our flagship, the EDF Retribution. And the weapon systems? The new shields? Are they operational?" Hayes nodded. "Yes. All advanced systems have been tested and are combat ready." "Then you have the unanimous authorization of this council," the President said, looking around the table to confirm. Every councilor nodded their agreement. "Deploy First Fleet with all necessary resources. Your mission is to assess the situation at New Hope and, if possible, rescue any survivors." "And if the attackers are still there?" Hayes asked, though he already knew the answer. The President's expression hardened. "Then you will show them exactly why humanity maintained a defense fleet for 20 years. These attackers chose to target civilians, families and children who pose no threat. They must learn that such actions have consequences." Within hours, Earth's military machine moved with a speed and efficiency that would have surprised the alien attackers. Ships that had been training for years were fully stocked with supplies and weapons. Crews who had practiced countless drills for this exact scenario reported for duty with grim determination. Captain Frank Morrison stood on the bridge of the EDF Retribution, Earth's most advanced warship. At 45, Morrison had spent his entire adult life preparing for a moment he had hoped would never come. "All systems ready, Captain," reported his second-in-command, Commander Rebecca Young. "Fleet reports full combat readiness." Morrison looked at the tactical display showing his 7 ships, smaller than the alien vessels they had seen in the distress call, but packed with technology that represented the best of human innovation and determination. "Send a message to all ships," Morrison ordered. "This is not a drill or a training exercise. This is what we've prepared for. We don't know what we'll find at New Hope, but whatever it is, we will show these attackers that targeting human civilians was the worst mistake they could have made." As final preparations were made, Admiral Hayes came aboard the Retribution. He would not command the mission, that was Morrison's role, but he would accompany the fleet as the representative of Earth's government. "I've spent 20 years fighting for this fleet's existence," Hayes told Morrison privately. "I always prayed we'd never need to use it." Morrison nodded. "I understand, sir. We'll do everything possible to resolve this without further bloodshed. But we will do what's necessary," Hayes finished for him. "Those are our people out there. We don't leave them to suffer." 42 hours after receiving the distress call, First Fleet departed Earth orbit. As the 7 warships accelerated toward the edge of the solar system where they would activate their experimental FTL drives, billions of humans watched through live feeds. For the first time in decades, all of humanity was united in a single purpose. Whatever these aliens were, whatever their reasons for attacking, they had made a profound miscalculation. They had assumed that because New Hope was isolated, it was unprotected. They would soon learn that no human settlement, no matter how distant, stood alone. As the ships vanished into the darkness of space, Morrison sent one final message to Earth. "We will return with our people, or we will not return at all." 5 days of faster-than-light travel left the crew of Earth's First Fleet tense and ready for action. Captain Frank Morrison had used the time to run battle simulations based on the sensor data from New Hope's distress call. The alien ships were larger than Earth vessels, but the humans had speed and technology on their side. The fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Epsilon Eridani system, far enough away to avoid immediate detection. Morrison ordered passive scans only, gathering information without revealing their presence. "Report," Morrison said, standing at the center of Retribution's command bridge. Lieutenant Paul Burton, the sensor officer, studied his displays with careful attention. "Confirming 21 alien vessels in orbit around New Hope. 7 large warships, 14 smaller craft. They've established ground bases and, sir, they appear to be mining operations." "Mining?" Morrison asked. "They attacked a colony for mining rights?" "It looks that way," Burton replied. "And, sir, I'm detecting human life signs on the surface. At least 2,000. They're concentrated in what appear to be work camps." A grim silence fell over the bridge. Half the colony's population was missing, presumably dead from the initial attack. The rest were being used as forced labor. Admiral Hayes, standing quietly at the back of the bridge, stepped forward. "So they're slavers," Hayes said, "using our people to extract resources." Morrison nodded. "That matches the attack pattern. They wanted workers, not just a dead colony." "Can we get a visual of the aliens?" Hayes asked. Burton adjusted his controls. The main screen showed magnified images of tall, insect-like creatures with multiple limbs and segmented bodies. They moved with efficient, precise motions, directing human prisoners with shock prods and energy weapons. "The Kravaks," said Olivia Foster, who had joined the fleet as their xenolinguistics expert. "That's what they call themselves, according to some symbols we've translated from their ships. They have a rigid caste system. The ones with blue markings are soldiers. The green ones are worker caste. The few with red are leaders." "Options?" Morrison asked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Richard Young. "They outnumber us 3-1, in ships," Young said. "But their technology is different, not necessarily superior. Their main advantage is size and, presumably, experience in space combat." "And our advantage?" Morrison pressed. "Surprise, superior maneuverability, and weapons they've never encountered," Young replied. "Our quantum shield technology should neutralize their energy weapons, at least initially. And our drones give us fighter capabilities their large ships can't match." Morrison considered the information, then made his decision. "We'll deploy in Formation Delta. Target their weapons and propulsion systems first. I want their ships disabled, not destroyed if possible, and prepare a communication on all frequencies." The 7 Earth ships moved into position, spreading out to approach the colony from different angles. On the Retribution's bridge, Morrison nodded to his communications officer. "Broadcast now." Lisa Chen activated the system. "This is the Earth Defense Force. You have attacked our people without provocation. Release all prisoners and withdraw immediately, or face the consequences of your actions." The message was sent in standard human language, but also in mathematical sequences that any advanced species should recognize as communication. They waited 30 seconds for a response. The answer came in the form of energy beams from the largest alien vessel, targeting the Retribution. The beams struck the ship's quantum shields, which flared bright blue but held firm. "No damage," reported Commander Young. "Shields at 92% and recharging." Morrison's expression hardened. "They've made their choice. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta. Target weapons and propulsion systems only. Deploy drone fighters." Earth's response began with a precision that surprised the alien forces. The human ships moved with unexpected speed, splitting into smaller groups to attack from multiple directions. From each vessel, swarms of small, unmanned craft deployed, fighter drones controlled by pilots safely aboard the larger ships. On the alien command ship, Sub-Hierarch Vikstar watched with growing concern as the human vessels executed maneuvers his own ships couldn't match. When the first salvo of Earth weapons struck his fleet, the surprise turned to alarm. The humans were using weapons the Kravaks had never encountered, railguns firing projectiles at speeds that allowed them to penetrate shields designed to stop, energy weapons and fusion torpedoes that caused localized damage rather than complete destruction. "They're targeting our weapons and engines," clicked one of his officers, the sound translated by their ship system. "Not trying to destroy us. Unusual tactics." Vikazatar didn't understand. In his experience, warfare was about complete domination. You destroyed your enemy or forced total surrender. These humans were fighting with restraint, which he interpreted as weakness. "Launch all fighter craft," he ordered. "Overwhelm them with numbers." 300 Kravaks fighters poured from the larger ships, moving to engage the human vessels. But they faced a combat situation unlike any they had trained for. The human drone fighters moved with impossible acceleration and turns that would kill any living pilot. Controlled by Earth's best pilots through neural links, the drones reacted with human intuition, but machine speed. In the first 10 minutes of engagement, half the Kravaks fighters were disabled or destroyed, while Earth lost only 12 drones, machines with no human pilots to mourn. On the Retribution, Morrison watched the battle unfold according to their simulations. The Kravax ships were powerful but predictable, following standard formations that suggested centuries of fighting inferior opponents. They've never faced an equal, Morrison realized aloud. They're used to overwhelming less advanced species. Hayes nodded. Which means they've never developed the tactics that come from fighting equals. Humans spent centuries fighting each other before we achieved peace. We've learned warfare the hard way. The battle in space continued for another hour. 3 more Earth drones were lost, but 5 Kravax capital ships were disabled, their weapons and propulsion systems destroyed with surgical precision. The remaining 2, including Vaxtar's command vessel, attempted to regroup. "Sir," said Communications Officer Chen, "we're receiving a transmission from the colony surface. It's Administrator Miller." Susan Miller's face appeared on the screen, thin and bruised but very much alive. She was speaking from what appeared to be a hidden location. "Earth forces, this is Administrator Miller. We have an organized resistance in the main labor camp. Many of us have sabotaged their equipment while pretending to cooperate. We're ready to act on your signal." Morrison leaned forward. "Administrator, this is Captain Morrison of the EDF Retribution. Hold your position. We're sending ground forces to secure the colony. Can you provide any tactical information about the ground forces?" Susan nodded. "There are approximately 500 Kravax soldiers on the surface, mostly concentrated around the mining operations. They keep us in 3 main labor camps. Their weapons can paralyze, but they prefer not to kill potential workers." "Understood," Morrison replied. "Stand by. Help is coming." As the space battle reached its decisive phase, Morrison ordered the deployment of Earth Marines. Dropships launched from the human vessels, protected by drone fighters as they descended, toward New Hope Colony. Major Samantha Clark led the first wave, her face set with determination behind her helmet visor. "Remember," she told her troops, "our priority is rescuing our people. Use non-lethal force when possible. We're here to show these Kravax that humans protect their own, but we're not mindless killers." As the dropships streaked through New Hope's atmosphere, the remaining colonists looked up with hope for the first time since the attack. Earth had come for them, and the Kravax were about to learn why targeting humans had been their greatest mistake. The Earth Marines' dropships landed in a clearing 1 mile from the main labor camp. 50 trained soldiers in advanced combat suits moved silently through the alien forest, their helmets providing enhanced vision and communication. Major Samantha Clark led from the front, her weapon ready but set to non-lethal force. "Movement ahead," whispered Lieutenant Kevin Reeves through the team comm. 6 Kravax guards at the perimeter fence. Samantha studied the insectoid aliens through her helmet's zoom function. The Kravax soldiers carried energy weapons and wore minimal armor, suggesting confidence rather than preparation. They hadn't expected anyone to come for their prisoners. "Team 1, deploy sonic disruptors," Samantha ordered. "Teams 2 and 3, prepare to move in once they're down." Small devices sailed through the air, landing near the alien guards. A high-frequency pulse that humans couldn't hear but that affected the Kravax nervous system erupted from each device. The guards dropped to the ground, their limbs twitching uncontrollably. "Move in," Samantha commanded. The Marines rushed forward, securing the fallen guards with specialized restraints designed to hold their multiple limbs. At the perimeter fence, Reeves used a cutting tool to create an opening. "Colony biosigns just ahead, Major." Inside the camp, nearly 700 humans were housed in simple shelters, forced to work 12-hour shifts in the mines. The colonists had noticed the unusual behavior of the guards and were watching carefully, hoping this was the rescue they'd been praying for. Dr. Peter Johnson, the colony's chief medical officer, saw the Earth Marines first. He had been treating injured workers in secret, hiding those too weak to work before the Kravax could eliminate them. When he spotted human soldiers slipping into the camp, he activated the signal Susan Miller had prepared. Throughout the camp, hidden resistance. Members passed the word Earth had come. "Be ready." The Marines moved efficiently through the camp, neutralizing Kravax guards before they could raise alarms. When they reached the central area, Samantha found Peter waiting with several other resistance leaders. Major Clark, Earth Defense Force. She introduced herself, removing her helmet. We're here to get you out. Peter smiled for the first time in weeks. Dr. Johnson, we have about 200 people here who can't walk. The rest can fight if you give us weapons. We brought extras, Samantha replied, signaling her team to distribute simple stun weapons to the able-bodied colonists. We have 2 more camps to liberate. Can you guide us? Nicole Green, the colony's chief engineer, stepped forward. She had been secretly mapping the alien operations while pretending to repair their equipment. I can do better than that, she said, handing Samantha a data chip. Complete layouts of all their facilities, guard rotations, and their command center location. Samantha inserted the chip into her tactical computer. This is excellent work. How did you get this? They think we're primitive, Nicole explained. They don't hide their tech or plans from us. They don't believe we can understand it. I've been studying them while fixing their machines. With the colonists' intelligence, Samantha split her forces. 3 teams would hit the remaining labor camps simultaneously, while a 4th would target the Kravax command center. In space, the battle had turned decisively in Earth's favor. 5 Kravax ships were disabled, 1 was destroyed when its reactor became unstable, and only the command ship remained combat-capable. Captain Morrison watched from the Retribution's bridge as Sub-Hierarch Vikstar's vessel attempted to maneuver for escape. They're trying to flee, reported Tactical Officer Young. Should we pursue? Morrison considered his options. No. Hold position between them and the planet. They're not leaving with our people still on the surface. Captain, interrupted, Communications Officer Chen, we're receiving a transmission from the Kravax command ship. The main screen showed Vikstar for the first time. A large Kravax with red markings across his carapace, his compound eyes glittering with what might have been fury or fear. Human vessels, the alien said, his words translated by Olivia Foster's linguistics program. You have violated Kravax territory and attacked our rightful mining operation. Withdraw or face destruction. Morrison's expression remained calm, but his voice carried steel. This is Captain Frank Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You attacked our colony without provocation, killed our people, and enslaved the survivors. There will be no withdrawal. Release all human prisoners and surrender your forces, or we will take them by force. Vikstar's mandibles clicked rapidly. Impossible. The Kravax do not surrender. Then you leave us no choice, Morrison replied, ending the transmission. He turned to Young. Target their engines. I want that ship immobilized. On the surface, the liberation of the labor camps proceeded with precise coordination. Earth Marines used their advanced weapons and training to overcome the alien guards, while the colonist resistance members helped free their fellow prisoners. At the main Kravax command center, Lieutenant Reeves led a small team through a maintenance tunnel Nicole had identified. They emerged in the central control room, catching the alien leaders completely by surprise. Within minutes, the command center was secured. Major Clark, Reeves reported over the comm. Command center captured. We have access to their systems and 3 high-ranking Kravax in custody. Excellent work, Samantha replied from the 2nd labor camp, where she was organizing the evacuation of injured colonists. Use their communication system. Tell all remaining Kravax forces to stand down and report to collection points. The message went out across the colony. Most of the Kravax soldiers, seeing their ships disabled in orbit and their command center captured, followed the orders without resistance. A few fought back, but were quickly subdued by the combined forces of Earth Marines and armed colonists. Susan Miller, who had been coordinating the resistance from hiding, finally emerged to join Samantha at the colony's original administration, building now damaged but still standing. You came, Susan said simply, fatigue and relief in her voice. When they attacked, I feared no one would ever know what happened to us. We received your message, Samantha told her, and we came as fast as technology allowed. Earth doesn't abandon its people. As the ground battle wound down, the final space confrontation reached its climax. Vikstar, seeing defeat on all fronts, made a desperate decision. The Kravax command, Ship's engines flared as it attempted to ram the Retribution. "Evasive action," Morrison ordered, but the massive alien vessel was committed to its course. "Sir," called out Young, "they're powering up some kind of self-destruct sequence. Energy readings are off the charts." Morrison made an instant decision. Deploy temporal stasis field. This was Earth's most classified technology, a field that could momentarily freeze a section of space-time. As the Kravax ship barreled toward them, the Retribution projected a shimmering field that enveloped the alien vessel. The massive ship slowed, then stopped completely, suspended in space as if frozen in time. "Field stable," reported Young. "We have approximately 10 minutes before it collapses. Enough time to evacuate our people from the surface," Morrison said, "and to make sure that when the field collapses, that ship is far enough away that its destruction doesn't harm the colony." Using tractor beams, the Earth ships carefully moved the suspended alien vessel to a safe distance. When the stasis field collapsed, the Kravax command ship exploded in a brilliant flash that briefly outshone the system's star. With their leadership destroyed and their forces captured, the remaining Kravax ships surrendered. Earth's First Fleet had achieved a complete victory, and the liberation of New Hope colony was secured. 6 months after the Battle of New Hope, the colony had been rebuilt and expanded. New buildings stood where the Kravax had destroyed the originals, but now with improved materials and stronger defenses. The population had grown to 7,000 as new settlers arrived, drawn by stories of the colony's resilience and the protection now provided by a permanent Earth Defense Force outpost. Susan Miller stood on the same balcony where she had watched the twin suns rise on the day of the attack. The sunrise was just as beautiful, but she was a different person now. The experience had changed her, as it had changed all the survivors. "Still having trouble sleeping?" asked Alan Rodriguez as he joined her, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Susan accepted a cup with a grateful nod. "Less than before. The nightmares are fading." She gestured toward the bustling colony below. "It helps to see them living again, not just surviving." The colony had become a symbol to all of humanity, proof that, despite the dangers of space, humans could face them and prevail. Every child born on New Hope, every new crop harvested, was a victory over those who had tried to enslave them. In orbit above the planet, 2 Earthships maintained a constant watch. The smaller vessel was a permanent defense station. The larger one was the EDF Protector, the newest and most advanced ship in Earth's rapidly expanding fleet. On the Protector's observation deck, Captain Frank Morrison watched as a small alien vessel approached under escort. It was the 3rd diplomatic mission to arrive this month. Word of what happened at New Hope had spread quickly across nearby star systems. "Another potential ally?" asked Admiral Hayes, who had come to inspect the new defenses. Morrison nodded. "The Tellarites. They're a trading species from a system, about 15 light-years from here. Apparently, they had also suffered Kravax attacks. The Battle of New Hope had revealed something unexpected. Earth was not the only victim of Kravax aggression. As news spread, representatives from 3 other species had already approached Earth seeking alliance and protection. The insectoid race had built an empire by targeting and enslaving less advanced civilizations, using their people and resources to expand further. "Any word on Kravax activity near their home systems?" Hayes asked. "Their fleet has pulled back to defend their core worlds," Morrison replied. "The captured soldiers we released carried our message back to their leaders. They know we could have killed them all but chose not to. They're reassessing their approach." Olivia Foster joined them on the deck, carrying data tablets. After the battle, she had been appointed as head of the new Xeno-Diplomatic Corps, tasked with establishing communication with potential alien allies. "The Tellarite ambassador is ready to meet," she said. "They're particularly interested in our quantum shield technology. They're offering trade routes and star charts in exchange for defensive technology." Hayes considered this. Approved, but only defensive systems. No weapons. He had become cautious about sharing Earth's military technology, even with allies. As they walked to the meeting room, Morrison asked, "How many species have the Kravax enslaved?" "At least 7 that we know of," Olivia replied. some for generations. The Kravax Empire spans 27 star systems. They've been expanding for centuries, always following the same pattern. Identify isolated colonies or weaker species, attack without warning, enslave the population, use their resources to grow stronger. Until they met us, Morrison said quietly. On Earth, similar conversations were happening in the Defense Council chamber. The discovery of hostile alien life had changed humanity's perspective on space exploration. The colonization program continued, but now each new settlement included defensive systems and military personnel. The captured Kravax technology had also provided unexpected benefits. Scientists studying their faster-than-light drives had already made improvements to Earth's own designs. Medical researchers were developing new treatments based on the paralytic weapons the aliens had used. In the council meeting, a new proposal was being discussed: the formation of a multi-species alliance for mutual defense and cooperation. The representative from New Hope Colony was present via holographic projection. The Kravax targeted us because we were isolated, Susan Miller told the council. They didn't expect anyone to come for us. Their entire strategy depends on finding those who stand alone. Counselor Patricia Edwards, once the strongest voice against military spending, had become the most vocal supporter of the alliance. Then we ensure no one stands alone, she said. Not humans, not any peaceful species. The vote was unanimous. Earth would lead the effort to create the first interstellar alliance in known space. Back on New Hope, the colonists held a memorial ceremony for those lost in the attack. Names were read aloud as new trees were planted in what would become a memorial forest. Among those planting trees were some of the youngest colonists, children born since the attack, the first generation who would grow up knowing that humans were not alone in the universe. Peter Johnson, still serving as the colony's chief medical officer, watched the ceremony with Nicole Green. They had been married the previous month, one of several couples who had found each other during the occupation and resistance. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Earth hadn't built those ships? Nicole asked. If they hadn't been ready when we needed them? Peter shook his head. I try not to think about it. We're alive. We're free. That's what matters. On the final day of his inspection tour, Admiral Hayes addressed the assembled colonists in the main square of New Hope. Behind him stood rows of Earth Marines alongside the colony's own defense force, which had been formed from resistance members after the liberation. 6 months ago, this colony faced extinction, Hayes began. You were targeted because someone thought you were helpless. They calculated that distance would isolate you, that Earth would not or could not respond. He paused, looking out at the faces of people who had endured occupation and emerged stronger. They were wrong. Distance does not divide humanity. Resources may be limited, technologies may be challenged, but our resolve to protect our own is limitless. New Hope will never stand alone again. No human settlement will. As Hayes spoke, negotiations were already underway with the Tellarites and 2 other species for the sharing of defense technologies and the establishment of mutual protection agreements. The Kravax Empire had begun to fracture as enslaved species, inspired by Earth's example, rose up against their oppressors. The universe had suddenly become both more dangerous and more full of opportunity than humanity had ever imagined. But they had proven themselves ready to face whatever waited among the stars. As Susan watched the ceremony from her place of honor, she thought about the message Earth had sent across the galaxy, written not in words, but in actions. Those who seek peaceful coexistence will find in humanity a friend and ally, but those who target